Today I read a book called Run for the Hills, Geronimo in the Geronimo Stilton series. Let's go right into it. A relaxing vacation. Everything was ready. Everything was perfectly organized. I had planned it all down to the last whisker. Everything was in place for a very, very relaxing vacation. In fact, it was my first real vacation since, I don't even remember when. Anyone who knows me knows I'm an extremely busy mouse. They also know I love my job even if I get stressed at times. Oh, what do I do? Sorry, I almost forgot to tell you. My name is Stilton, Geronimo Stilton. I run a newspaper called the Rodent's Gazette. It's the most famous paper on Mouse Island. Okay, so what was I squeaking about? Oh, yes, of course. I was going to tell you about this supposedly relaxing trip. It started like this. I had decided to take a vacation. Nothing too exciting, I just wanted to get away and put my paws up. So I headed for my trusted travel agency, the Wanderat, to get some tips from Miss Samantha Sweetpaws. She'd understand just what I had in mind. Miss Sweetpaws began leafing through some penny shows, talking nonstop. Mr. Stilton, would trekking in the Himalayas suit you? How about a tour of the Namibian desert? With the lions, I had to pick her back to reality before she packed me off to the Rosendrat volcano. Actually, all I want to do on this vacation is relax, I squeaked. Squeak no more, Mr. Stilton, she cried. I know you will. What you want is an incredibly boring vacation. I blushed. No, I'm not saying it has to be boring. I just want it to be relaxing. Relaxing, huh? She chuckled. Don't worry, I've got it all taken care of. She reached for the top of her bookcase. After rummaging, she removed a very large, dusty box. The label read, Relaxing Vacation for Boring Mice. But I'm not boring, I protested. Oh, please don't lie to me, Mr. Stilton. Miss Sweetpaws replied, I've known you for years. Besides, you shouldn't be ashamed of being boring. She tugged playfully at my whiskers. Youch! Miss Sweetpaws fumbled through the large, dusty box. Several minutes later, she triumphantly pulled out a tourist guide. The lazy rascal to the Black Hills. There were photos of luscious green forests, enchanted-looking lakes, and clear blue skies. Then a photo of the Golden Dreams Hotel caught my eye. The caption read, all-inclusive for a super relaxing vacation. Super relaxing? I whispered. Perfect! Miss Sweetpaws, please book me 15 days at the Golden Dreams Hotel and a round trip ticket to South Dakota. Miss Sweetpaws winked at me from behind her glasses. What was I just telling you? She yelled. You are a boring mouse. But because you're such a good customer, I'll book you a first-class ticket, compliments of the agency. Miss Sweetpaws spent a few minutes typing into her computer. Okay, you're all set. She gave me a free tourist guide and then gave my tail an affectionate yet tear-inducing yank. Look at all the interesting things you can see in the Black Hills. Oh, thank you, Miss Sweetpaws, but I don't want to do anything, I said, taking the pamphlet. Just want to curl up in one of these cushy lounge chairs with a good book and relax. I took my plane ticket. I was starting to feel relaxed already. I left the agency singing. Hoo, hoo, hoo! For the next few weeks, I was more stressed than a castaway on Tomcat Island. It felt like the day of my flight would never arrive, but it finally did. I hopped in a taxi and left for the airport in plenty of time. I could hardly believe it was happening at last. I was going on vacation. A real vacation. And I was flying first class for free. I headed for the check-in counter of the airline I was flying. Mouse there. A pushy red carpet led to first-class check-in. I stepped onto it nervously. It felt so soft beneath my paws. I scampered up to the counter like a very important rodent. Which means VIR, very important rodent. My line for the economy check-in counter started. I stared at me curiously and whispered, "Check out the mouse! He must be a VIR! Isn't that Geronimo Stilton? Look, he's flying first class!" The pretty mouse at the counter looked my passport with a smile. She typed my name into the computer and stared at the screen. She glanced at me and then began banging at the keyboard, a perplexed expression on her snout. After another moment, she squeaked, "Mr. Stilton, there's nothing booked in your name." "That's impossible," I protested. "I booked my flight with the Wanderat." She nodded. "Yes, but your ticket was canceled. I'm sorry." I stepped away from the counter and pulled out my cell phone to call Miss Sleepot. Then when the pretty mouse called, "Mr. Stilton, please wait a moment. Someone booked another ticket for you with Dirt Cheap Airlines. Here it is." I took the ticket. It was made of a tattered piece of tissue. I moved slowly away from the VIR window. I was totally mortified. I could hear all the mice around me whispering, "Isn't that Geronimo Stilton? He's flying with Dirt Cheap Airlines? What a stinky mouse! Who'd have known?" Dragging my suitcase behind me, I scrambled to catch my flight. As I scampered along, panting, I wondered, who has canceled my first class ticket? Who? A garbage can with wings. I boarded the plane and wedged myself next to a plump rodent wearing a cowboy hat pulled down over his eyes. I settled it and tried to calm down. Once I got to the Black Hills, I would be able to enjoy my relaxing vacation. No sooner had I finished that thought than the plane began to make a terrifying noise. I gulped and looked around. The airplane was in a state of total disrepair. The seat covers were torn, the springs had popped out of the cushions, the food tray wouldn't open, and the windows were filthy. On top of all that, there was no life jacket under the seat. Instead, there was an empty box that says, "You wanted to save a buck? Well, too bad for you. In case of emergency, you're on your own." I checked to see if there were any paper bags in case. I started to get an upset tummy. Naturally, there wasn't a single one. Instead, there was a note, "You wanted to save a buck? Too bad for you. In case of motion sickness, you're on your own." This wasn't a plane, it was a garbage can with wings. I looked up and saw the flight attendant scowling at me. "You weren't about to complain, were you?" she growled. No, everything is just swell," I stammered. The other passengers didn't seem to notice the plane's shitty condition or the terrible sounds coming from its engine. They were all snoozing. Unbelievable! The plane was speeding along, about to take off. I gulped and grabbed the armrest. One of them broke off in my paw. Eek! This was going to be a long flight! Holy cheese, I was right about that. As soon as we were in the air, the rodent next to me took off his cat and shouted, "Surprise! It was my cousin Tramp!" That was the signal to the other 6 passengers. They removed their cowboy hats to squeaking, "Surprise!" It was my sister Dia, my friend Petunia Pretty Paws, her niece Bugsy Wugsy, my nephew Benjamin, my good friend Bruce Hyena, my grandfather William Shorepaw. I looked at them, dumbfounded. What are you doing here?" Trav laughed smugly. "Hey, Germister, how did you like our latest surprise? It's all my doing. I heard you were leaving for a relaxing vacation all by your lonesome. Cancel your ticket and book a flight for all of us. On your dime, of course. Aren't you excited, cousinkins?" Then he lowered a squeak. "This relaxation is just a ruse, you see. You and I have a top secret mission. We're going to look for treasure in the Black Hills, but don't speak a word to anyone about it." Did you like my surprise? I was struck speechless. When I finally found my voice, I stammered, You did?" Before I could finish my thought, the flight attendant interrupted. "Stop whining and sit down. You're about to start rolling." "What? Dancing on an airplane?" I assumed she was kidding, but at that moment, the plane started to go up and down, 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 up and down. I could feel the cheddar croissant I had for breakfast rising in my throat. chewy cheese chunks. I felt so sick I forgot to ask Trap about the treasure in the Black Hills and why it was such a big secret. As usual, Trap was as cool as cottage cheese. He never got sick. He settled into his seat and started leafing through a catalog he'd found in a seat pocket. Glanced over his shoulder and seemed to advertise some every stuff. I was worried. What was my cousin up to? I sighed. My dummy was doing too many somersaults for me to investigate now, but I knew I'd find out sooner or later. Here, take the whole thing. The rest of the flight was painful, especially for my poor stomach. But luckily, the following morning we arrived safe and sound at Rapid City Airport in South Dakota. This was where our journey through the Black Hills would begin. As we scampered off the plane, I realized I could relax at last. Whew, by all that's cheesy and delicious, we're here, I shouted. And damn, good mouth, we're in one piece. I was so relieved I kissed the ground. My travel companions just shook their snouts. My sister mumbled, "That's my brother for you. What a fraidy mouse." I didn't care. I was too happy. If I could survive that flight, I could survive anything, even a vacation with Trap. I noticed my family members were all busy. It was great to travel with a group of friends. Everyone made himself useful. Trap put me in charge of renting the vehicles since everything was on my dime. The clerk from the rental car agency shook me from my thoughts. "Are you Geronimo Stilton?" "Yes, that's me," I replied. "May I please have a credit card?" I gave him my Mouse Express card. He swiped it, then looked at his computer screen and frowned. "I'm sorry, you're low on funds. Do you have another card?" I gave him my Mouse Express Gold card. He shook his snout. "It's still not enough to pay for the rentals." So I gave him my entire wallet with every credit card I had in it. "Here, take the whole thing." The clerk took the cards, swiping one after the other. Then there was a wad of receipts for me to sign. They were as thick as the last Ratty Potter book. Holy cheese! With all the money, I could have paid for 10 relaxing vacations. Trap was standing next to me. He didn't seem to notice the dent this trip was making in my wallet. He was too busy leafing through the catalog he found on the plane and squeaking away on his cell phone. Every so often he glanced over at me. I was worried. What was my cousin up to? The clerk gave me back my wallet. I reached to take it, but it slipped out of my paw. All my credit cards spilled onto the floor. Trap helped me pick them up, but I got to the sense he was smirking behind his whiskers. He's planning something. I knew it! After he'd picked up the credit cards, he immediately started yammering on his cell phone again. He flipped furiously through the catalog. I was worried. What was my crafty cousin up to now? Before I could ask, he snapped his phone shut and ran outside shouting, "Hooray! We're leaving!" We rented one Mouse Bagel camper with air conditioning, GPS, electric windows, and automatic locks. One Harley Davidson motorcycle with a detachable sidecar. 8 mountain bikes with sturdy and particle cushion seats. Enough, please. No more surprises. Before we left, we had a delicious breakfast. Bacon and eggs, pancakes, donuts, and orange juice. After the rubbery cheese we'd had on the plane, it really hit the spot. Yum, yum! We loaded the luggage and scurried aboard the camper. Everyone, that is, except for Trap. He'd insisted I rent a Harley Davidson motorcycle for the two of us. He leaped onto the bike. I had to squeeze on the sidecar next to him. As if that weren't bad enough, he forced me to wear a ridiculous leather jacket complete with fringe and bandana. "Stilton family, let's through!" shouted Grandfather William. "We'll meet at Mount Rushmore. Last one there buys everyone dinner." With that, the camper sputtered to life and sped ahead of us. I couldn't believe a vehicle that big could go so fast. Later, Trap told me he'd requested the Super Turbo Extra Velocity model. No wonder I had to use so many credit cards. Trap put the pedal to the metal. I tried scream as the bike took off at breakneck speed. My stomach leaped up to my tonsils, then lunged down to my knees. Ark, slow down! I'm not sure if my cousin didn't hear me or just didn't care. He kept burning rubber. Desperate, I tried to distract myself from thoughts of being splattered on the highway. That's when I remembered something very important. Hadn't Trap said something about a treasure? By the way, what were you talking about on the plane? I asked him. What? He shouted. It was so noisy on the open road, I had to shout to be heard. What were you telling me on the plane? Shut your trap, Jerry Berry. Didn't I tell you it was a secret? He hollered. I rolled my eyes, as if anyone could hear us. Over the shrieking of the motorcycle, my cousin lowered his voice. Listen, the family vacation is just a diversion. In reality, you and I are going to look for treasure in the back hills. But remember, don't tell anybody. That is so, he finished mysteriously. I knew Trap well enough to be suspicious of his motive. Could the treasure possibly be a secret because you don't want to share it with anyone? My cousin started making excuses. Well, actually, we can't all look for the treasure. We'd be too noticeable. I knew what he was up to, so I decided that at the first opportunity, I would talk openly, honestly, and truthfully in front of our friends and family about the treasure. I suggest we divide it equally among ourselves. But I didn't tell my cousin what I was thinking. I knew he's just tried to talk me about it. Well, how did you find out about this treasure? I asked. Is there a map? You've got a lot more than that, Jerrykins. You'll see. Not only do we have a map, but also an that you'll find out soon enough. It'll be a surprise. Uh-oh. I was starting to get a bad feeling about this. Every time my cousin cooks up a surprise, it spells trouble for me. Another surprise? I shouted. No, thank you. Stop the bike. I want to get off. Trap suddenly veered out onto a tiny side road, then meandered into the woods. Ow, owie, ouch, ouch, ouchie. We were bumping along a dirt road at top speed when he hit the brakes. You want to get off? Go ahead. The next thing I knew, I was flying out of the sidecar. Ah! I flipped through the air, head over paws, right into space. I landed with a thud. Then I rode down the path, banging my poor snout on every pebble and stone along the way. Every time I turned over, my tail was crushed under me. I rubbed the top of my snout, grumbling. He said I wanted to get off, not to be thrown off, I whimpered. Trap snickered. Sorry, Germister. He said to stop immediately. I'm just trying to help. I raised my snout to the heavens in exasperation. That's when I saw a huge balloon floating above us. It was a hot air balloon. 2 letters were written on it. WW. Hey, Jerry Berry, do you like my surprise? Trap asked. See those letters WW? They ring a bell. I know what they stand for because, you know, I'm a genius. Besides, it was me who had the brilliant idea to arrange the whole thing. What a guess is inside that hot air balloon? Only the greatest expert on treasure in all of Mouse Island. That's who. Ready for an adventure? I squinted up at the hot air balloon. I could just make out the outline of a tall, athletic rodent. He wore a vest and a khaki shirt. But what was most noticeable was his wide-brimmed cowboy hat. There was only one rodent in all of Mouse Island who wore that kind of thing. It was Wild Willie. Do you know him? He is a truly remarkable rodent. Wild Willie is one of Bruce Hyena's best friends. They often travel together in search of treasure and lost civilizations. Trap and I watched the hot air balloon descend. As soon as it touched the ground, Wild Willie scrambled out and grinned at me. Stilton, are you ready for adventure? There was something about that grin that made me nervous. Who? Me? Adventure? What do you mean? I blabbered. No, I don't think so. I mean, definitely not. Wild Willie gave me a long, probing look. No, Stilton, I was surprised that a mouse like you would choose a vacation like this. He stroked his whiskers thoughtfully. Aren't you a bit of a cheese potato? You know, one of those mice who's all about hot tubs. was Z-Wrap recliners and all-you-can-eat buffets. His words cut me right to the tailbone. I was so dismayed that I took my eye off my troublemaker cousin. It was only for a second, but that was just long enough for Trap to trip me. I shot up straight as an arrow and landed right in the hot air balloon. I tried to scramble out, but my paw got stuck under all the supplies at the bottom of the basket. There would be no quick getaway for me. Trap had already hopped in after me, and while Willie was loosening the ropes that kept us tied to the ground. "Go with the adventure," he shouted. With that, the hot air balloon rose into the sky, up, and away. I stuck my snout out of the balloon in horror. The ground was moving farther and farther away. "Help, help! I want to get out," I shouted, whiskers flapping in the wind while Willie shouted back. "Too late! You can't get out now. I do like the ride. I gave you my word." I tried to gather my courage. "All right, Trav, you got me here. Now you owe it to me to tell me about this treasure." Trav put his paw under his shirt and retrieved what looked like a very old piece of paper. He shoved it under my snout. The first thing I noticed was a terrible stench. The whole map smelled like rotten fish. Ew! It was a small, crumpled torn sheet of paper. A piece at the very bottom was missing. I sniffed and I almost gagged. "Trap, why does this map stink?" "Because I found it at New Maltese docks. Someone threw it into a garbage can filled with fish guts," he explained. I pinched my nostrils, took the map, and read the instructions out loud. "If it's treasure that you seek, look deep into the forefathers' eyes, and don't forget to peek." "Don't forget to peek. I wonder what that means," I mused. "I've got it!" While Willie pointed to a spot directly beneath us. "What do you use to peek?" Glasses," I suggested. "That's right!" exclaimed Willie. So we have to look there from President Roosevelt's eyes. He's the only one wearing glasses. I followed his gaze and almost passed out from fright. We were floating above Mount Rushmore. I slapped myself in the snout, then winced in agony. Of course, I thought of it. The American forefathers were the presidents, while Willie was a genius. "Great, but how are you and Trap going to get down there?" I asked innocently, while Willie twisted his whiskers. He sized us up with his piercing blue eyes. "Well, I'm all muscle and Trap is all fat, which makes you the lightest. So you're it. Ready for adventure, Stilton?" "What? Me? No way!" I screeched. The next thing I knew, they were lowering me out of the balloon. Why do these things always happen to me? "Where's the adventure, Stilton?" while Willie called down to me. Why do these things always happen to me?" I moaned. For all the holes in a slice of Swiss, I swear all I wanted was a relaxing vacation. There was absolutely nothing relaxing about hanging from a rope hundreds of feet above Mount Rushmore. In front of my snout loomed the faces of 4 famous American presidents: George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. Their eyes were enormous, looming before me like the jaws of a pack of hungry cats. As I dangled my tail, reflected on the 14 years it had taken to carve Mount Rushmore. It must have taken tons of dynamite as well as the work of Floss and Loss's sculptors. What an incredible feat! I recognized the giant features of Theodore Roosevelt and saw that he was indeed wearing glasses. He was definitely the one the map referred to. I looked up at the balloon and shouted, "I found it, but I can't get any closer." "Try swinging yourself toward the glasses as hard as you can," shouted Wild Willie. "And don't worry, if you think you're in danger, you tug at the ropes 3 times. I didn't want to, but I did as I was told. I took a deep breath. "Last one there's pays the bill." I slipped the scroll in my pocket. Suddenly I felt 3 tugs. there was something wrong. I pushed myself out of the president's eye and felt myself being pulled harder. The next thing I knew, I was dangling in midair like a rodent in a cat's claw. It was terrifying. I looked up, down, and all around. That's when I realized there was a crowd of rodents on the ground below me. They were all shouting and pointing at me. Petunia and Dia were among them. Look, who's that rodent dressed in green? Maybe he's a famous actor. Looks like a complete cheese brain to me. Then Dia shrieked, "Wait a minute, it's Jerry! Impossible! He gets airsick!" cried Petunia. Before I could call to them, Captain Wild Willie pulled me back into the hot air balloon. Wild Willie steered the balloon to a clearing far from the curious eyes of our friends. Wonder what it means. Here's the mysterious message written on the parchment. There are jewels that no mouth can part. These should be left within Earth's heart. Huh? I don't know. Somehow he managed to land in the precise spot where he'd left the motorcycle and sidecar. We immediately began examining the mysterious scroll. Trap took the parchment, held it up to the light, and turned it over. He inspected it for a long time, searching for a hidden cup. While Willie was twirling his whiskers again, I could tell he was deep in thought. Inside Earth's heart, Jews, he murmured. Stilton, give me your guidebook. I handed in the pamphlet Mrs. Sweetpaws had given me, while Willie quickly paged through it. Catapulting cowpose. I think I've got it, he declared. We've got to go to Jewel Cave. I smacked my snout. I really had to stop doing that. It hurt. Of course, Jewel Cave. I read that inside it sparkles like skim precious stones. Trap smirked at me. Before you, mister, you're almost semi-intelligent. Before I could respond, Wild Willie cried, "We're off, Stilton. Adventure waits for no mouth." Wild Willie is a rodent. A few words, but the ones he chooses leaves their mark. While Willie and Trap hopped on the bike. Reluctantly, I squeezed myself into the sidecar. We burned rubber as we sped toward Mount Rushmore. Yes, you read correctly. We were headed back to Mount Rushmore, where I just made a total cheese brain of myself. I hope nobody recognizes me, I muttered. At last, my hopes were in vain. As soon as we pulled into the parking lot, rodents started pointing at me. Look, there he is, they snickered. That's a crazy cheese brain we saw hanging from the hot air balloon. My fur turned redder than a tomato. Everyone was staring at me. On top of that, Grandfather, Bruce, Petunia, Dia, Benjamin, and Bugsy Wugsy had been waiting for us for hours, and they were quite exasperated. Petunia looked at me sternly. Geronimo, I would never have expected this from you. Shame on you, Jerry, Dia shouted. Grandson, why are you late? I've told you 100 times, the early mouse gets the cheese. Grandfather William Shortpaw swooned. That wasn't you hanging from a hot air balloon like a world-class cheese brain, was it? I was about to confess the whole absurd story of the treasure and the hot air balloon, but before I could open my mouth, Trap elbowed me hard. Then he kicked me in the shin for good measure. It's all Geronimo's fault, Trap squeaked. He got car sick, motorcycle sick. I had to drive very, very slowly and stop every 2 minutes so he didn't lose his cheese. You know how Geronimo is. He's such a wimp and he's always whining. I was about to protest when Petunia threw a paw around my shoulder. She looked very confused. Okay, my poor little cheese dumpling, how are you feeling? After that, I kept my snout shut. You see, I have a soft spot for Petunia and I was ecstatic she was being so kind to me. Besides, once my friends spotted Wild Willie, they forgot all about me. They quickly invited him to join our group. Benjamin and Bugsy Wugsy asked for his autograph. They begged him to squeak after school about his archaeological finds. They even asked if he would teach them karate. In all the confusion, I didn't have time to tell the whole story, but I promised myself I would as soon as I could. Enough of all this chattering, Grandfather shouted. It's time to eat. I'm hungrier than a rodent on a diet. Grandson, since you were the last to arrive, dinner is on you. May the best rodent wins. Naturally, dinner cost me a bundo. We stopped at a restaurant we found along the highway. Everyone was so hungry they ordered double portions of the most expensive items on the menu. While we waited for the food to be served, Bruce and Wild Willie started each other down grinning. Without squeaking a word, the two friends rolled up their sleeves and began to paw wrestle. "Show me what you can do, Willie," Bruce declared. "You're in for it now, Bruce," Wild Willie responded. But the two mice were so well matched that neither was able to move the other's paw, not even by a millimeter. The wrestling match ended in a draw. Flashing a cocky grin, Wild Willie showed us a star on his right paw. "You see this? I got it 2 years ago on an expedition to the Mayan pyramids. I came snout to snout with a mouse trap with razor-sharp tips." Bruce rolled up his pant leg and displayed a scar as long as a slice of Swiss. "Oh yeah? Well, look here. A starving mountain lion mistook me for breakfast. Benjamin encouraged me to join in the competition. Come on, Uncle G, squeeze something too." Now, dear reader, I am a very quiet, cautious rodent. I spend most of my time at the office, glued to my desk. But I didn't want to disappoint my favorite nephew, so I muttered, "Oh yes, but just look at this bruise on my chin. Number 1, I got it from the corner of my desk. Number 2, here I squished my tail shut in a taxi store. Number 3, just 1 ear on my right knee. That's from when I slipped on a banana peel. Number 4, this one came from slamming the refrigerator door on my paw. Not surprisingly, no one was impressed by my wounds. No one except Petunia, that is. She's always very concerned for my well-being. Poor little cheese curve. He's always so distracted," she whispered. Tia was less sympathetic. "That's so true, Petunia," she said. "My brother is a world champion klutz." Everyone chuckled under their whiskers. My fur turned red with embarrassment. Bruce ignored my tale of woe completely. He was busy trying to impress Tia and Petunia. Using just one paw, he lifted a heavy table above his snout. But then Tia and Petunia scarcely noticed. In fact, they seemed a little annoyed. "I hope the steaks come soon, or we'll have to watch these two compete all night long," my sister murmured. Sure enough, Wawa lifted an enormous refrigerator with one paw. Then Bruce grabbed me and began showing off a whole series of extremely rapid karate moves. He twirled me around in midair and, for the grand finale, slammed me on the floor like a wet mop. Then Wild Willie began his counter-strike. He immobilized the adversary, me of course, by whacking me on the neck. So there I was, stuck on the floor, unable to move a whisker, until he finally relented and helped me up. I scrambled to my paws, rubbing my neck. I was in agony. That's when I heard Tia whisper to Petunia. I had no idea why Willie knew the secret art of karate's pressure point. When a few masters in the world are familiar with the ancient Japanese technique, I could tell she was impressed. Who knows how long this friendly but painful competition would have gone on if the waiter hadn't arrived with their steaks and the rest of our food. Thank goodness. Bruce and Wild Willie exchanged some heavy-duty slaps on the back and then shook paws. No one's tougher than you, Willie old pal. Way to keep in shape, Bruce old buddy. Finally, we all sat down like a normal pack of mice and began to make plans for the following day. Trap immediately suggested we visit View Cave. Everyone readily agreed that it was a very famous cave worth seeing. I opened my snout to tell everyone about the mysterious treasure. That's when Trap pinched my ear, kicked my chin, and smacked me on the back. Before I knew what was happening, I found myself snout down in a bowl of cheese soup. By the time I wiped my snout, Trap had changed the subject. Everyone was just busy laughing unpreciously at his impression of me as my snout in a bowl of soup. Besides, I promised myself I'd tell everyone the story of the mysterious treasure in the Black Hills as soon as I could. I was convinced that together we could easily find the treasure. Besides that, I wanted to divide it equally among us. My cousin Trap has a lot of good qualities, but when it comes to money, he's greedier than my great uncle Stingy Snout. After cleaning my snout, I went to the cash register to pay the bill. But when I looked for my Mount Express gold card, I couldn't find it anywhere. Rusty Kitty litter, I must have lost it at the airport. What a catastrophe! Home on the range. After I finally settled the bill, I followed my family into the parking lot. I found Grandfather Williams waiting impatiently behind the camper's steering wheel. Yo, grandson, he barked, would you pick up the pace? You're slower than a slug at a snail wedding. My ears burned with embarrassment. I scrambled into Trapp's sky car. As soon as Wild Willie had climbed on the bike behind him, Trap took off in a cloud of dust. It was a mile in the landscape when Trap suddenly stopped the bike dead in its track. I heard a buffalo was crossing the road. I was flung out of the sidecar. I landed within an inch of a buffalo's enormous horns. It stared at me threateningly, puffing hot full breath from his nostrils. I tried to scamper away, but the buffalo headbutted me. Next thing I knew, I landed in snout first in the pile of dirt. Unfortunately for me, it wasn't just the pile of dirt. It was the den of a big family of prairie dogs. The mother of the clown was not happy to see me. She chomped me right on the tip of my snout. Yikes, that was a huge ouchie. I dragged my sorry tail back into the sidecar. So busy massaging my aching snout, I didn't see Trap smack on the ear coming. Jerry Berry, no need to show off, he told me. That's right, Dia called. You don't have to pretend you can do outrageous stunts like Bruce and Wild Willie. Thundering cattails. I wasn't trying to show off, I screeched. Oh, how did I end up here? All I wanted was a relaxing vacation. For a few hours, we sat and watched the buffalo roam. Despite my aching snout, I have to admit it was an incredible sight. When the bison had finally cleared the road, we resumed our journey. An hour later, we arrived at Jewel Cave. I bet you can guess who had to pay the entrance fee for everybody. Me, of course! Trump made me choose the longest, most expensive tour, the never-ending expedition. The cashier looked at me impressed. Are you sure you want a ticket for the never-ending expedition? Do you understand why it's called that? I felt my knees quake with fright. I was about to give back the tickets when Trap grabbed them. I'll take those, thank you. We put on Lodge's helmets and ring gear and followed our guide. She led us through broad caves with walls covered by minerals that shone like jewels. Cow cities hung from all sides. It was amazing. Suddenly our guide turned down a small, dark, narrow, and very muddy tunnel. Now's up, rodents. The fun begins now, Bruce exclaimed. Wild Willie winked at me, twirling his whiskers. Ready for adventure, Stilton? Of course he's ready. Trap answered for me. He shoved me ahead of him down the dark, narrow tunnel. For a moment, I felt nothing under my paws but empty air. The meaning of speleologist is a scholar and explorer of underground caves. So began my reckless descent down a long, dark, slippery tunnel. I went down, 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 and I was completely alone. My friends had disappeared. At last my paws splashed into a pool of clear, freezing water. As the light off my helmet glinted across the water, I noticed the pool was in the shape of a heart that reminded me of something. Suddenly the words of the last clue came to me. There are jewels that no mouth can part. These should be left within Earth's heart. I dove down to the frozen water. At the bottom of the hearty pool I saw writing. Tiny quartz pebbles that shone like jewels spilled a message. On the Black Hill's highest crest, you find the key to the treasure. Giddy up now, if you know what's best, or you'll lose by any measure. I emerged from the frozen water, repeating the message so I wouldn't forget it. This was the clue that could lead us to the treasure in the Black Hills. Hee-haw! But after a moment, I started to panic. I almost forgotten I had a big problem. I was lost in a deep, dark cave, hundreds of feet beneath the earth. Terrified, I yelled, "Help! Beware of the mountain lion!" I immediately heard a familiar squeak. "Take it easy, champ," the voice said. The stick with me, and we'll slide out a few quicker than an earthworm slides through mud. It was Bruce. I grabbed his paw, and together we scampered through dark tunnel after dark tunnel. When we finally reached daylight, I was covered in mud, but just like an earthworm. Before I passed out, I managed to murmur, "Clue, treasure, Black Hills." Bruce and Wild Willie carried me to the camper and put me to bed with a hot water bottle of my paws. I had a liver and a pretty bad cold. Between sneezes, I told everyone the truth about Trapp's mysterious map and the search for treasure in the Black Hills. Then I revealed what I had read at the bottom of the heart-shaped pool the pebble spilled. On the Black Hills' highest crest, you will find the key to the treasure. Be ideal now, if the know was best, or you'll lose by any measure. Said Wobbly. The highest point of the Black Hills is Harney Peak at 7,242 feet. Great, we'll climb it tomorrow at dawn, declared Bruce. Cheese niblets, exclaimed Benjamin and Bugsy Wugsy. We're going to treasure hunting. Yeah, for my treasure, whined Trap. I smiled. I knew I was too sick for Trap to get mad at me. Our treasure, we'll search for it together. We'll find it together and we'll divide it among ourselves together. That's what friends do. Before I went to bed, Wobbly and Bruce called us together for last-minute instructions. Bruce was the first to squeak. Do you remember the mountain lion that took a bite out of my back leg? It happened right around here. We looked at each other nervously. When we go out tomorrow, keep together as a group and stick to the path, Willie continued. If you come snout to snout with the mountain lion, don't scurry away. Stare him in the eyes, or he'll smell your fear and attack you. Never turn your back on the mountain lion and don't bend down. He can mistake you for prey, Bruce added. Try to look as big as you can and slowly back away. Move your paws up and down. If the mountain lion seems aggressive, throw rocks or branches at him. Number 1. Creak, creak. I tried to get up, but my knees wouldn't straighten. Number 2. Whoosh. I grabbed the display case, but I made the swords fall. Number 3. Swoosh. Cutting off my whiskers. Number 4, arc! I crashed into the iguana and a thorn got stuck in my fur. Number 5, I tried to pull it out, but I knocked over the kettle and burned my tail. Ouch! I banged my head on a gong and finally fainted. 3 samurai and an ordinary mouse. When I came to, I was completely confused. Instead of my regular clothes, I was wearing a floral Japanese tunic. I looked just like an ancient Japanese rodent. I massaged my head. What a lump. I was thinking about getting an ice pack when I turned and saw 3 samurai warriors in complete armor staring at me. Help! I want to live! I shrieked. The first samurai rolled his eyes. Cut the drama, Stilton, he scolded. The ninja are out to steal his secret parchment. It's up to us to save it. I realized that samurai was Wild Willie. Huh? I mumbled. Why are you dressed like that? The second samurai snickered. Because this is a dream, Stilton. And in the dream, we are samurai. It was Chop Chop. Oh, a dream? How nice. Can't be a samurai too? I squeaked. The third samurai was slim and graceful. It was Lola's snout. Sorry, Stilton. Even in your dreams, you'll always be just an ordinary mouse, she giggled. Wrath, I murmured. What Willie could tell I was disappointed. I'll tell you what, Stilton. I'll keep my eye on you. If you work hard, maybe at the end of this dream, you can become a real samurai, he suggested. Then he mounted the saddle of a black horse and shouted, Let's move! The ninja are after us. We've got to hide this parchment in a safe place. I gulped. I wasn't much of a horseback rider. Plus, I was afraid of the dark. But what could I do? I knew Wild Willie was keeping an eye on me. So I climbed into a horse and followed my friends. We traveled under a full moon, changing directions many times so the ninja would have trouble following us. Maybe it was my imagination, but it felt like I saw the ninja shadows everywhere we rode. Cheese niblets! It's tough being a scaredy mouse. Finally, we came to a lonely valley lost among the mountains where a waterfall tumbled down from a rock shaped like the head of a dragon. We'll go under the waterfall. It's a secret passageway that will take us to the Roaring Dragon Valley, Wild Willie said. I shivered. The waterfall tumbling down from the top of the rock sounded exactly like the roar of a dragon. Slimy Swiss rolls. I was so scared I thought I might faint. But I had to go on. Wild Willie was watching me. I took a deep breath and rode under the falls. On the other side, we came to a lush green valley. A castle rose in the distance. That castle would be a safe place for the parchment. It belongs to a wise shogun. His name is Hanshi, which means teacher of the trades. While Willie explained, soon we reached the castle and everyone slid off their horses and went inside. I, on the other paw, threw off my horse, tripped over my tail, and stumbled after them. Once inside, I found myself in a room decorated with colorful silk drapes. At one end of the room, there was a stage. In the center of it sat a regal-looking rodent wearing a red tunic with the dragon embroidered on it. The rodent stared at us with deep, penetrating eyes. It was then that I noticed the two massive gold dragonets in front of a chair and two more on the armrest. I guess that rodent looked like his dragons. Two rows of fully armed guards stood watching our every move. I tried not to look as scared as I felt, but I couldn't stop my whiskers from trembling with fear. Meanwhile, Wild Willie bowed before the shogun in greeting. He took out the rolled parchment and bowed his head again. Honorable Shogun Hanshi, Master of Masters, we are here to ask for your help, he said. How can I help? Asked the Shogun. We are being followed by the head of the ninja who wants this parchment containing an ancient karate secret. May we hide it in your castle? The Shogun Hanshi thought for a moment and then bowed his head and said, Let it be so. He waved his paw and the guards left the room. Then he rested his arms on the throne's golden armrests and pressed down heavily on them. We heard a creaking and suddenly the walls before us opened up, revealing a secret room. The Shogun produced 7 keys. Then he opened 7 chests nestled neatly one inside the other. I'll hide the parchment there. In these chests in this secret room. No one will ever find it. A secret will be preserved for hundreds of years until it is time to be revealed, the Shogun said. Then he turned to us. You have been very courageous. One can see you are a real samurai, he remarked. I turned red. Well, actually, I'm not a real samurai. I'm just an ordinary mouse, I confessed. The Shogun looked deeply into my eyes and murmured, I can fix that. Then he asked in a loud voice, Who will vouch for the courage of this mouse? Wobbly took a step forward. I will vouch for him, he said. Even though he's basically a scaredy mouse, on this journey he faced his fears to help protect the parchment. He was the heart of a real samurai. The Shogun stared at me. Do you promise to keep your spirit strong and to always follow the way of the samurai? He asked. Yes, I stammered. Then the Shogun stood up and announced, You are now a samurai. I was so honored, I bowed deeply to thank him, but ended up tripping over my tail and smashing my head on the floor. Arg! Bullseye! I came to because somebody was slapping my face as if it were a punching bag at the Iron Pod Gym in New Mount City. Wake up, Stilton, a voice instructed. It was hard for me to get up. I was out of it. My head was spinning and my whiskers were trembling. What was going on? Was I awake or was I dreaming? Confused, I asked, Where am I? Why are you slapping me? Am I still a real samurai? I looked around me and my eyes opened wide. I was no longer in the castle of the Roaring Dragon. I was back at Karate Master Noble Mouse's house. The ticketo was upside down on the floor, the antique swords were scattered next to it, and there was a huge dent in the gong. Chop Chop, Lotus Nails, and Wild Willie stood looking down at me. They were no longer dressed in their samurai outfits. Instead of a sword, Lotus Nails clutched a cell phone. He's awake. Should I still call the ambulance? She asked the others as they examined the watermelon-sized lump on my head. While Willie laughed silently under his whiskers. I think you'll be fine. Right, Stilton? That was a great show, though. My favorite part was when you slammed the gong with the furry skull. Bullseye, he chuckled. We knew you had such a hard head. And then it all came back to me. The tea ceremony, my aching knees, trying to stand up, knocking over the tea kettle, and slamming my hands into the gong. Youch! I was trying to ignore the ringing in my ears when Wild Willie's voice broke into my thoughts. Okay, enough entertaining. Let's shake a off before the ninja catch up to us. We're off to the Roaring Dragon Valley. We need to find a parchment. It's hidden somewhere inside the castle there, she said. At that, I instantly forgot about my aching hip. I know exactly where the parchment is. I saw it in my dream, I screamed. It's in a special room in the castle. Chop Chop and Lotus Stout laughed. It was only a dream, Geronimo. It wasn't real, they said, while Willie looked me directly in the eyes. It does sound strange, but I want to trust you, Stilton. I promise you won't be sorry, I squeaked. Everyone follow me. I was done as we took off down the road. Noblemouse stayed behind to alert all the farmers in the village to the ninja who were coming. He promised to join us as soon as he had gathered everyone. By the first rays of the morning sun, we arrived in the lonely valley. I recognized the waterfall tumbling down from a rock shaped like the head of a dragon. I went under the falls and I headed straight toward the secret passageway. At the other side of the falls were the Roaring Dragon Valley, and beyond that, Hanshi's castle. Everything was just like in the dream, but the castle was in ruins as if hundreds and hundreds of years had gone by. If the castle looked like this today, the legend of the three samurai. The roof of the castle was crumbling, and the red paint had all but peeled away. Large overgrown bamboo shrubs swayed forlornly, and the stairs were cracked and caked with dirt. We began to walk toward the castle. War steps echoed on the big gray stones in the path. My heart was pounding a mile a minute. Did I mention that I hate spooky stuff? Just then Wild Millie murmured, "Are you ready for adventure?" "Yes," the others answered immediately. As for me, I was too busy biting my nails. Oh, how I wished I were home in my comfy, cozy mouse hole. We entered the castle, but before we closed the front door behind us, we checked to see if the ninja were following us. Luckily, there were no ninja in sight. It was as dark as night in the castle, and the air was thick and musty. I lit a candle with shaky paws and tried to concentrate on not burning myself. I looked around. Dust covered every object in the room, and cobwebs hung out from the ceiling. Still, the room looked the same as I remembered it from my dream. Even if time had destroyed much of it, I recognized the stage with the red chair with the shogun sat it, and the armrests were shaped like the heads of dragons, just like my dream. If everyone was like the dream, then the parchment had to be here. In my dream, the shogun pushed the armrest of the chair and the secret room appeared, I mumbled. Then I sat slowly down on the chair. My whiskers trembled. I was so nervous. I pushed hard on the two armrests. Nothing happened. My heart sank to my paws. But then I heard a tiny creak, then another creak, and another creak. On the wooden wall before us, a tiny crevice appeared. I squeezed myself through. "Follow me," I shouted. On the other side of the crevice was a small room, which I remembered well. I had not penetrated that room until now, so the colors were not faded, and it seemed the time had stood still. In a corner was an antique, lacquered wooden chest and a ring of keys. The chest was identical to the one in my dream. I opened it with a key and took out another chest, then another, and another, then another, and another. Finally, I got to the last prize chest. I took out the parchment, which was tied with the red silk ribbon. When I saw it, I was speechless. It was identical to the one I had seen in my dream. Here's the legendary parchment. The only difference was that it was yellowed and fragile, as if years, even centuries, had gone by since my dream. I was so excited I could hardly squeak. I could hardly believe my dream had turned out to be reality. And now that we had found the parchment, we could finally discover a secret. Tell me what it says. The red dot is the Japanese flag. Okay. Wild Willie took the parchment, read it, and muttered, Interesting, very interesting. So what's the secret in the parchment? I asked. He looked at me, then back at the parchment. Interesting, very interesting, he said again. I twisted my tail in a knot. Okay, we get that. It's interesting. But what does it say? I insisted. Willie blinked. Actually, it's a lot more interesting than you might think, he continued. I bit my tongue to stop myself from screaming, but it was no use. Couldn't take it anymore. Tell me, I shrieked. Tell me, what is this? While Willie twirled his mustache and stared at me. Really, Stilton, you need to learn how to have patience. Do you know the meaning of the word? He said with a smirk. I tried to calm down, but I was feeling so impatient I thought I might explode in a cloud of fur. Finally, Willie held out the parchment. Unfortunately, I couldn't read a thing. There was a lot of Japanese writing and a drawing showing a figure with red dots on it. This parchment explains all about pressure points. Oh, I didn't know. I thought it was a flag. No, Japanese flag. This parchment explains all about pressure points. It is said that the body has certain areas that correspond to centers of energy. Touching them at specific points can heal or immobilize a rodent, Willie said. This ancient technique was used by samurai long ago. He studied the parchment intensely. Let's see if it works. Come here, Stilton, he commanded. I blinked. Do we really have to try it? I whined. Of course, Willie said, shaking his head. Don't be such a scaredy mouse. Drilled, chop chop, and Lotus Snout shouted. Yes, come on, yes, let's try it. Before I knew it, while Willie lightly brushed his paw against my chin. Within seconds, I crashed to the floor like a brick of steel cheese. Snap! Everybody cheered. It works! I sat up and rubbed my aching tail. Why do I always have to be the assistant? I mumbled. But of course, no one was listening. While Willie had begun translating the rest of the parchment, it says here, this ancient and mysterious technique is called tweet, he said. It says here, this ancient and mysterious technique is called tweet, he said. It allows the weak to overcome the strong and gives the unarmed a chance to defend themselves when attacked. Tweet is a traditional karate fighting technique. It is based on attacking certain pressure points on the body by gathering the opponent. Pressure points must be hit at the correct angle. It is used in self-defense. It's not based on force, but an agility, swiftness, and knowledge of the pressure points. It's to use only in self-defense and never to attack someone. At this, while Willie nodded. That's so true. My karate teacher always said, the wise mouse values peace, not conflict. Willie had us memorize all the pressure points. There were tons of them all over the body. Who knew? Stick up your paws. We were still checking out the pressure points when a voice cried out, Stick up your paws! We turned to see a rodent with evil eyes. It was Shrewd Paws. He was followed by 7 rodents dressed in black and armed to the teeth. The ninja. I felt faint with fear. How could we defend ourselves? There were 8 of them and only 4 of us. Plus, they were armed. Headlines flashed across my brains. Stilton slashed by ninja swords. Rudy publisher pummeled in Japan. But just then, Willie whispered, Remember the secret of the parchment. We began defending ourselves using the technique we had learned. One by one, the ninja fell to the ground like lumpy old cheese rinds. A few minutes later, Master Noblemouse and all the farmers in this village showed up to help. But that's the secret of the parchment. The weak had conquered the strong. We were safe. The ninja were tied up and taken away as Shrewd Paws squeaked angrily. The parchment should have been mine! Mine! Then he stamped his paws and began wailing like a spoiled mouselet. While Willie snickered, Oh, stop your blubbering, Shrewd Paws. Did you really think you would get the parchment? It's a treasure from the past. That means it's not yours or mine. It belongs to everyone. Noble Mouse nodded. Very wise, Red Dragon. We will donate this parchment to the Museum of Rodent History in New Mouse City. While Willie bowed. So be it, Master, he said. And so it was. We returned to Mouse Island and donated the parchment of the Museum of Rodent History. Now it's there for everyone to enjoy. I give you my word, or my name isn't Geronimo Stilton. What took you so long? After my trip, I took a few days off and then I went back to work at the Rodents Gazette. My grandfather, William Shortpaws, Dia, Benjamin, Trapp, and all my co-workers were there to greet me. Word of our adventures in Japan had already reached New Mount City. Hooray, Geronimo! Welcome back! Great job fighting these ninja! While everyone was cheering, Grandfather pulled me aside. Now, okay, that's enough partying, grandson. Now get back to work! You finally had a descent adventure and I want you to write about it right now! I want it done by early next week. Do you understand? Get cracking. What could I do? Lock myself in the office and began writing like a mad mouse. The following week, I finished my new book. Yep, that's right. It's the book you're reading now, The Way of the Samurai. Dia was the first to read it. Good for you, Geronimo, she said when she was done. I knew you needed a new adventure, and that the trip to Japan was perfect for you. I was right as usual. What else is new? I sighed. My sister likes to take credit for everything. For a while, everything bounced back to normal. I went to work, came home, and relaxed with the book in my cozy mouthful. Then one night, I decided to take a walk by the docks. Before long, I found myself in the little courtyard at South Paw Square. The garden looked the same, but there was a new outdoor restaurant. As I strolled over, I noticed the rodents were eating rock clams. That got me thinking of Wild Willie's word. Stilton, there's exciting little rock clams. I grinned to myself. Well, that was before we went on our adventure to Japan. Now I knew I could be strong and courageous, just like a real samurai. When I reached the karate dojo, I peered inside. I saw Chop Chop and Lotus Snout training with my sister, Dia, and my friend Bruce Hyena. In the front of the room, I even saw my little nephew Benjamin and his friend Bugsy Wugsy taking lessons with other young rodents. I couldn't believe they were all learning karate. As I watched, lots of students carrying sports bags pushed past me and headed into the dojo for their own karate lessons. For a minute, I thought about my comfy postures at home. Then I looked at my family and friends inside the dojo. They were laughing and learning and getting stronger. Putting one paw before the other, I followed the students inside. Seeing me, Chop Chop, Lotus Snout, Hyena, Tia, Baby Bonsai, Benjamin, and Bugsy Wugsy ran to greet me. Geronimo is here, they squeaked. Then I saw Wild Willie in the corner. What took you so long, Stilton? He said with a smile. From that day on, things changed. 3 times a week I took karate lessons. And eventually I even earned my black belt. Now, way more exciting than a rock climb. Everyone was very proud of me. And after that, I went on to many more exciting adventures with Wild Willie. Was I scared? Of course. But I tried to remember what I had learned in Japan about courage and heart and the incredible way of the samurai. Okay, those are the belts. White belt, the lowest level. Yellow belt, the next one. Orange belt, green belt, blue belt, brown belt, and black belt, okay? That's how the samurai karate works. Okay, that was the book, and I have more Geronimo Stilton audiobooks, so please check out the playlist. And I have more audiobook videos like that and shorter ones if you want to see those. And I'll see you soon. Take care.